You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. And be sure to smash that like button. This is in no way unexpected, but it also bears mentioning and leading the show today, and that is that Will Campbell announced via Instagram that he is foregoing his final season of eligibility and will enter the NFL draft. Again, Will Campbell is a 3-year starter. He is a projected first-round pick. This comes as no surprise to anyone. It's just that it is formal now that he has declared and will not play his final season in Baton Rouge, and we wish him all the luck in the world and all the success, and he'll go on to a great NFL career. But I was thinking about it today, and I knew we'd have time at some point to talk about this. Will Campbell very well could go down as the greatest offensive lineman in LSU history. I want to remind you, way back on April the 9th of 2022, this was, and thank you, Muse, practice number 8. This was the 8th practice of Will Campbell's spring. So he plays his high school senior year at Neville, early enrollee in January. LSU's going through spring ball. 8 practices into spring. As an early enrollee, Brian Kelly moves him to left tackle.
Generally, you come in as a freshman, you don't know where their maturity level is emotionally. If they get beat on a play, how do they come back the next play? He moves on to the next play. I just think it's an emotional maturity that he carries as a freshman that's made him a guy that we can plug in as such a young player. We wanted to make sure that he had that kind of maturity, and we saw it over 3 or 4 practices and said, all right, it's time. Let's get him in there.
3 or 4 practices, we saw it. We're like, okay, it's time. Let's get him in there. You knew from jump, he came in with all the expectation in the world. And so often guys who are 5 stars come in with all the expectation and rarely live up to that much expectation, because that much expectation is a very hard thing to match. Will Campbell did it. He started at left tackle in literally his first game against Florida State, trying to block Jared Verse. In all 38 games of his LSU career, he started at left tackle. He was the left tackle protecting the blind side of a Heisman Trophy winner. He was a 2022 freshman All-American. 2023, he was first team All-SEC. And this year, I assume, like many of you, that Will Campbell will be a first team All-American this year. To put some context around that, LSU has never, in its history, had a 2-time first-team All-American offensive lineman, ever. They've had first-team All-Americans on the offensive line, but never a 2-time. So Campbell has not been a first-team All-American yet. The last time LSU had an offensive tackle earn first-team All-America honors was Lance Smith in 1984. 40 years ago. It has been 40 years since LSU had a first-team All-American offensive tackle. Will Campbell has a chance to do that this year. And I assume he will be a first-team All-American. He should be. If he's not, what the hell's wrong with voters? LSU has never, in its football history, never had an offensive tackle drafted in the first round. It has not had a first-round draft pick from the offensive line since Alan Faneca in 1998, but he was a guard. LSU has never, in its football history, had a first-round offensive tackle. How about that stat? Will Campbell's about to do that. According to Pro Football Focus, this year Will Campbell had 557 pass block snaps. His pass block grade at PFF was an 83.3. He allowed 1 sack, 4 hits, and 9 hurries in 557 pass block snaps, according to Pro Football Focus grades. I mean, the only case against Will Campbell is something he has no control of, which is he kind of joins the list of all-time greats, of amazing football players at LSU that didn't win an SEC or a national championship. And that stinks. Patrick Peterson's on that list. Devin White's on that list. Tyrann Mathieu won an SEC championship, but not a national championship. Jarvis and Odell. And obviously we can go before this very decorated era of LSU football, where you went 45 years without a national championship. But in this era, it's kind of like in baseball where we talk about Bregman and Ben McDonald, who are on the very short exclusive list of the greatest players to ever put on that uniform. But when you're judged by winning championships, didn't get over the hump. Again, that's nothing Will Campbell could control. He did everything he could do. He was awesome. It was a pleasure to watch him play. For LSU, you start to look ahead to say, okay, well, who's your next left tackle? Tyree Adams repped as the number 2 left tackle this year. So I would presume, unless if LSU goes into the portal, Tyree Adams would be there. Weston Davis, 5-star true freshman, is someone that they like a lot. So in theory, you could go into next year with Tyree Adams as your left tackle and Weston Davis as your right tackle, or maybe those guys battle for one spot, or maybe you go into the transfer portal. I don't know. But whoever ends up manning that post at left tackle has enormous shoes to fill. Quite possibly the greatest ever in the history of the LSU football program. And when you've played football for more than 130 years, and you can say you were the greatest at anything, that bears stopping, pausing, and giving a great amount of deference and respect, which Will Campbell deserves. Quite arguably, the greatest offensive lineman LSU's ever produced. We'll see how he goes on to the next stage. No doubt he'll do great in the NFL as well. And we'll see what it means for LSU's offensive line, because you are very likely losing 4 starters. Frazier and Delling are out of eligibility. Will Campbell has declared. We've talked about Emory Jones having a decision to make. It sounds of late like Emory Jones is leaning toward leaving and not returning to LSU. So that will become a gigantic position of need for LSU there on the offensive line. No bigger spot, obviously, than replacing Will Campbell at left tackle. Will Campbell declares for the draft his LSU career is over. Wish him, obviously, the very best of luck. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.